About a year ago, I was given this mower. It was abandoned at a rental property, and I also got the Craftsman tractor that I already posted. I got this at the same place. So we're gonna see if we can get this thing running, see if it's savable. So we're gonna have to go through, clean the fins off here. I'm gonna do a tune-up on it with a spark plug. There's no leak around the valve cover here, so it should be all right there. The carburetor, you see, is all packed full, so we're going to have to take out apart, clean it. The fuel on it's pretty much varnished, so it's going to have to be rebuilt or replaced. And as you can see, it's not in the best condition in here. Don't look like it's really taken care of. The primer looks like it's tore. Yeah, it ain't too hateful in here. Here's stuff definitely built up, especially on the carburetor. We're gonna have to take and get that cleaned up. Take the pressure washer to it. And these engines are really simple. They're overhead valve. Everything's like right here, pretty much. Your exhaust, your carburetor, your fuel tank. It just lifts right up and out. It's just little plastic tabs here. That's all it holds it. 3 screws, and the cover comes off. I mean, the Briggs & Stratton always was a pretty easy engine to work on, in my opinion. I always did like Briggs & Stratton. They always seem to set forever and then start, and you could even go as far as locking them up and let them cool off, and they'd start and run again. And they're pretty reliable engines. Okay, so we got this thing pressure washed. Got the carburetor and the air filter assembly off. Got the fuel tank off. The spark plugs out, and this thing cleaned up pretty good. A couple spots I need to go through yet with a rag and probably a flat screwdriver and clean up. And took some of the paint off while I was pressure washing it. So here's this carburetor. I'm gonna clean it up some more. I'm taking it apart. Probably hate myself later. That O-ring, something won't happen to it, or it's expanded or something, and it won't go back in. So here's the air filter, is in pretty horrible shape, and the spark plug. And if you look really close, there's like a water oil mixture bridging the gap right there, and this spark plug's probably been in there for a long time. Alright, so this carburetor is actually pretty clean on the inside. Here's the bowl, and these on this model, these are all plastic. So some of the things you want to look for when cleaning the carburetor. On the other ones, this O-ring would actually sit on the inside if you had like an aluminum bowl, and it would expand from being in the fuel, and when you go put it back on, it wouldn't fit. So once you took it off, you had to replace it or figure out a way to get it to kind of retract a little bit to go back in and seal up. And you want to make sure that this metering port is clean on these, because that's where your fuel goes in to go up through the nozzle to go up into the venturi. The way the venturi works, as air is pulled in through the carburetor, it creates a vacuum, and what it'll do is, like a straw, it'll pull the gas up through that nozzle, and it'll mix with your air as it goes into the combustion chamber. The next thing you want to check is your needle on your float, and the seat, which is down in here. And here's your float, and here's your pin. And here's how the needle sets into the float on this model. Now, some of them had like a little wire that held them in place, and there'd also be a tab that would be adjustable for your float height. This one here doesn't appear to be adjustable. It's just preset from when it was manufactured. It's hard to see, but the needle is sitting down in there where the seat's at. And this pin just pops into place on these. Usually it slides in from the side, then it gets locked once the bowl is assembled. And this here moves up and down, and this floats in gasoline. So when the bowl here gets full, This will be setting up like this. So when the fuel level comes up, this will float on the fuel. It'll push the needle up into the seat and it'll seal off. So that way no more fuel can come into the carburetor. When the fuel level drops, this will come back down. It'll open up that seat again and it'll allow fuel to come back into the carburetor. And how I test the needle and seat is I'll just blow a little bit of air into the hose. I just use my mouth. You don't need very much. Like it's just gravity fed, so just hardly any pressure at all. Then you open and close your needle and seat, and it should prevent you from being able to push air past it. And when you open it back up, you should be able to blow air through it again. 2 screws hold the bowl on this model. Usually there's like a single nut in the center, or just like a flat nut, depending on which model. Then make sure that this O-ring is back in here behind this retainer, because if that is bad or broken, it'll create a vacuum leak and the mower will surge, like where the RPMs constantly rev up and down. And this is the O-ring that goes against the air filter assembly. Make sure that's there, because you don't need it pulling in dirt, and over time that'll mess up your carburetor, and it'll eventually it'll scratch the cylinder walls, and you'll have a lack of compression, and before you know it, you'll need a new mower, because nowadays these mowers aren't worth taking to a machine shop and having the cylinders redone. It's just cheaper to go buy a whole nother one. But most common problems with these mowers, as they said, the fuel gums up with ethanol, and that's all they need, just to take a little bit of time, do some maintenance, clean them up, and they're ready to go again. Okay, we got our carburetor one. Then next, you want to check your fuel tank. There is right here, there's a screen. You make sure that's clean, and make sure there's not a bunch of stuff laying at the bottom of the tank. Make sure your fuel line's in good shape, no dry rot, nothing like that. And next we're going to put the air filter housing back on and make sure that's good and clean. But I'm going to have it run before I do a tune-up on it. That'd be air filter, spark plug, and oil. It does have oil in it, and it's a little dirty, but it's pretty decent. So next we're going to come up here, and I took the spark plug, I cleaned it up a little bit, and gapped it at 35. It was about 20. You want to make sure we got spark. Got the top cover cleaned up and back on it, so that way we can spin the motor over easier. If you got a drill, you could use a socket on that nut up there on the flywheel and turn it by that. But I'd rather just do it with the rope. Now, depending on the frame rate, you might be able to see these sparks, and you definitely be able to hear them. Okay, and we got spark. Ideally, you want to see like a blue. This one was more of an orange, but this is an older plug. I'm not going to really get too particular with that, because that is still a really nice spark and more than enough needed to ignite fuel. I've seen engines run off of a way weaker spark than that. I'm going to try running it off of some carbon choke cleaner. 2+2 also works really good, and if you get the flammable brake clean stuff will also run off of that. I've even had weed eaters run off of WD-40, but not all engines will run off of it. Okay, so I put some gas in here. and it'll probably start smoking. I'm pretty sure there's oil up in the muffler. Hopefully that'll clear out within about 10-15 minutes of running. Okay, when you go to service these, always pull your spark plug wire. That way you don't have any chance of the mower accidentally starting. So to find parts, you can scan this sticker. But when I did it, it didn't come back with a page. It just said page not found. And when I searched for this number here, and nothing came back. Briggs and Stratton used to do a really easy way to find parts, and anymore it's just gotten, I think, just out of hand. It's definitely not as easy as it used to be. So what you can do is right here, your Briggs and Stratton 450 E series and 125cc. If you search that series on Google, it will show you like your parts, and you can see your parts and stuff. Briggs and Stratton was pretty good for making everything pretty much the same. Some stuff did change, and that would have went by when they used like a model type code. You could go by your code number to tell which part you needed. But they just make it really hard now that you have this. And if that sticker comes off, you kind of in a little bit of trouble. But then again, you already are, because I can't get that sticker to work when I've used them in the past. So I would really like if they went back to the model type code setup. That was so much easier to find parts. So after finding some part numbers, and right here at the Folgers Coffee, we have filter kits. Here's the filter and the new primer, and it even came with the new cover. Come down here with the ramen noodles, and we get our spark plugs, and we need an RC12YC. These overhead Briggs use this RC12YC, and your flathead Briggs models use an RJ19LM. Okay, new primer's in, and all you do is pry out that tab, and it'll come out. And the new one, you just line it up with the groove it fits in. Take a flat screwdriver and bump it with the palm of your hand, and it'll set each side. Installing the new spark plug, I gapped it at 35. And when you go to tighten this, it'll feel like you're stripping the threads, but you're not. You're just crushing the crush washer for your seal. This mower doesn't have a drain tube, so I just took the dipstick out and leaned it up on its side and drained the oil that way. This took about a half quart, and with a little bit of your remaining oil, take and put it on your foam filter. Then you want to squeeze the filter to work the oil into it. Then you should be able to touch it and get a little bit of oil on your fingers. Then that's ready to be installed. So when I had this mower running, I noticed I had a really big vibration to it. And if you look here, I don't think his blade's ever been changed. That's very thin. And on this side, it already started to cut through. And looking at the spark plug, even, it still had like black spray paint on it. I'm just wondering if that was from the factory. If so, that would say that this thing's never had a new blade put on it. It's never had a spark plug put in it, and it's probably never been serviced. I don't know runtime on it. It starts right up, seems to have very good compression. Looking at this blade, I'd say it probably had 4 or 5 years on it and never serviced. And here's the new blade. As you can see how thick that is. New blade is installed, and you just gotta make sure that on the bottom it's got that design in the blade that's got to line up with the blade adapter. Then you got a little plate that lines up with the 2 holes on the outside. Been sitting here for a while now with gas in it, no leaks. Fuel line looks good. I don't see nothing trying to seep through. Looks like the float's sealed up. There's nothing dripping out. Nothing dripping out right here where it come out the intake. Don't forget to put the spark plug wire back on, and I'll give it 3 primes and see how it runs and see if that vibration's going. Okay, the huge part of that vibration's going. There was a little bit, but I mean it's a working machine, so you can't make them perfect. And I'm very happy with that. So it looks like we have a working mower. I'm going to fix the wheels. I don't like how they're kind of angled on the front. I'm going to put flat plate behind where the bolts are for the hub. And that's how I'm going to take care of that.